If you have ever walked out of an IEP or a 504 meeting feeling confused, dismissed, rushed, or unsure of what you just agreed to, this episode is for you. Today, we're continuing our conversation with Karen Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. Isn't that a great title? If you didn't hear part one, where Karen shares some of her personal experience and helps us understand where to begin, you're going to want to catch that too. And let me tell you guys, I forgot that she is a comedian. So not only do we get a lot of good information, we get some good laughs with her too. Today, we're moving from understanding the basics to learning how to advocate at the table. We'll talk about what to do when you feel dismissed, what to ask, what to document, and how to keep the focus on your child's needs without feeling like you have to fight the flood. Are you overwhelmed by constant meltdowns, defiance, or challenging behaviors? Are you longing for peace in your home? You're in the right spot. I'm Jami, mom of 7, counselor, parent coach, and wrangler of big emotions. I've learned how to calm the chaos and build connection, even when things feel like they're falling apart. If you are looking to connect with your child, find effective parenting tools that honor your family values and understand your child's unique wiring, you found it here. So pour that coffee, find a quiet spot if you have one of those in your house, and let's get started. Welcome back to the Calm Connection Parenting Podcast. Today we are continuing part 2 of our conversation with Karen Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. In the last episode, Karen helped us understand where to begin when a child may need more support at school. We talked about the difference between a 504 plan and an IEP, how children can struggle even when their grades look okay, and why behavior may be pointing to an unmet support need. But today, we're going to go a step further. We're talking about what happens when you're actually at the table. Maybe we should back it up to when you try to get yourself to walk through the door, because that can be hard too. How do you ask good questions? What do you do when you feel dismissed? Why should you document? And how can you advocate for your child with both confidence and clarity? Karen, thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you for having me on the show.
You bet. Karen, I know before a parent walks in to an IEP or a 504 meeting, what is one thing you wish they understood about their role at that table?
The federal law says that they are the number one stakeholder, and an appellate and circuit law actually calls the parent the expert, which would be odd for a parent. You don't work in a school, you don't teach children. You are the expert. You've had the longest experience of your child with their struggles, right? And so you're going into somebody else's place of business, and it feels like you're going up against another team. But you have to know that your voice is paramount in developing the program for your child to be successful.
Oh, that's so true. So true. And I think sometimes, I think you alluded to this in the first episode that we did, you just plain feel outnumbered sometimes. And so it's hard to feel like your voice matters when it's just one of you. And, I know I've been in somewhere there's 6, 7 other people, and it's easy to feel a little bit diminished or a little bit intimidated to even speak up. So I love that you remind us of the importance of that role. Tell me, how can parents show up as part of the team without feeling powerless?
They have power, and that the law says that their input is equally as important as the schools. And again, it's your child. Nobody has ever spent as much time with your child as you have. And so I think one of the things that parents need to show up with is they need to have drafts before they go to the meeting. I don't go to an IEP meeting without a full draft copy of the IEP. And this is how I write the email. Dear staff, super excited about seeing you April 3rd. Please provide me a full draft copy of the IEP document. Without that draft copy ahead of time, it's unlikely I'll be able to make an informed decision, understanding that it's just a draft and all decisions are made in the meeting. I have to come prepared. This is the only place where there are business meetings and you're the only one that doesn't know about the paperwork. You're the only person that hasn't had any input. And so I have had an IEP meeting when there was 28 other people, Jami, and I was like, oh, wow, this is
a conference.
my first wedding. Yeah. and they just look at you, right? I love a crowd, the more the merrier, but we've got to keep the main thing the main thing, and you have to come with questions written down. This is not like if you went into the grocery store, spent $300 and left without the one thing. This is your child's future. You have to get out a piece of paper. You have to go over last year's IEP. You have to look at their last 36 instructional weeks IEP progress reports and take the time to go through there so that we're all on the same page. Love teachers, love school districts. 80% of the people that I train are educators. I love them. There's not a better setting than public school. We get it right. But they're doing volumes and volumes of IEPs. And you're the one most likely to identify a need that might be missed in creating the paperwork.
Yeah, so important. And I hate to admit how clueless I was when I started down this journey, but I mean, truth be known, our kiddos had been tested for high ability learning and they just kind of did their thing. But then you start on this SPED journey, which kind of feels like an opposite, but it isn't really because our child was 2E. He shared some of those traits as well as needing some supports and services. But because his grades weren't hurting, it was an extra tough battle to get him in the door of finding supports. And, we are in a good situation with IEP and the team and the school that work with us now. Clear back in the beginning, we had some learning by trial and error. And I hate to admit that I was one of those parents that got paperwork and just kind of like put it aside. Like I didn't really understand why they even sent it until we got involved with an advocate that explained what different parts of that paperwork meant and why it was important for certain things to be included and how I needed to make sure those things were there. And so I really like that you talk about the paperwork because even sometimes having a binder that you just stick everything in one spot, even if you don't know how to understand it alone, if you get somebody to help you, it's at least organized to look at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things is we write better notes for the Friday night babysitter than we do in IEP meetings. We do. We're like, here's the Wi-Fi password. He goes to bed at 9, not 9:30, right? And why are you doing that? So that you can go enjoy your evening and the person that's caring for him knows what he needs. That's what an IEP is. It's a love letter that we've written that we believe with these supports, with this frequency, modality, and location, he will flourish, right? We also know already, if you do this, it will not go well, right? And so parents are the cornerstone of IDEA. And it actually says in one of the pillars that parents are the ones who help the school develop the IEP, which seems unusual because you don't work at the school, right? But it's a learn as we go for any of us, which is the reason I wrote the Epic IEP, so that anybody could get this book and walk through the 7 steps. It's the same 7 steps if I was your advocate, if I was advocating for my own child, if I was training advocates, if I'm training school districts. It's these 7 pillars because nobody told you that you were part of creating this document, right? It's sort of like if you went to, I'm going to be on the team for the University of Texas basketball team, and you get there and the other 4 people don't talk to you. Uh-oh. You don't know the plays, but you have a uniform. You're not really part of a team. And so this is called a team. And the stakeholders are parent, local education agency, general ed teacher, special ed teacher, and evaluation person. And so at minimum, those are the people that we need at the table. And if your child has a lot of needs, a little need, or some need, it's all the same. A need is a need. You're not being a problem. You're not a bother. They are not doing you a favor, and it doesn't come out of their paycheck. Yeah. And so we are going to be the parent that sticks and stays for what our kiddo needs so that they can be successful adults.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder. And I know, so many people are in different situations. Maybe you're in a large school and you just feel lost in the shuffle. In our situation, we were in a very small school where everybody's friends and everybody's neighbors, and it felt so uncomfortable to try to advocate. But no matter what situation you're in, the facts remain that you're filling a role for your child, and it is okay to advocate for their educational needs. I love the reminders that you're giving us in that. Tell me, what should parents bring with them to an IEP meeting so that they feel more prepared and less overwhelmed? Are there certain documents, notes, emails, evaluations, or examples from home that might be helpful for the team?
Yeah. So remember that you're the team. So in schools, when I hear that the team recommended this and the parent disagreed, good news, that can't happen because the parent is part of the team, right? So if you were going to a meeting, I have four things on deck when I'm in an IEP meeting, whether I'm in the Kodiak Islands or in Miami. And here's what they are: last year's final IEP that we agreed upon, printed out one side. The last 36 instructional weeks of their IEP progress reports on their IEP goals, the last robust and comprehensive evaluations, and the full draft for this meeting. You need all of those. I need to be able to go, Jamie, this is the exact same goal from last year, right? And I do it because I have hundreds of kids that I serve, but you're not going to remember it either. And so that way you have mapped out how successful this year has been, where he hasn't made gains, which could be because of a number of things. And so the IEP is our best informed guess, but without all of those pieces, you're going to be reactive and responsive instead of being a teammate, right? So usually you have the meeting, Jamie, Mr. Any questions? Any question? Yeah, why do you keep talking like that? That's my question. And why are you wearing that out? Why do you think cheetah sleeves was a good look? Those are things that I'm thinking, right? It's sort of like if a doctor starts talking doctor and him asking me if I have any questions. I have no idea what you're talking about. But this is so important that we get right, because when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. And we get it wrong for the child, we get it wrong for everybody. Right. And kids become frustrated that receive these services when they don't have continuity. When things change year to year, you're the only stakeholder that will be at all of your child's IEP meetings.
Such a good point. Such a good point.
You're the only one, right? Even if they're the world's greatest math teacher, you won't be his math teacher next year, right? And so you're the stakeholder that goes all the way through. And so nobody's going to tell you to do that. I am, because I tell people what to do all day long. It's a gift I have. And so you need to be prepared when you go buy a house. You've done 52 meetings and the lender and this is more important than any of that. And they need you as their lead teammate.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good reminder. Such a good reminder. And it was important for me. I discovered the hard way, a lot of this is that you can ask to bring somebody with you. Like one time I took my daughter-in-law and she was able to take notes so that I could just listen. Like I felt so stressed about, I need to write things down because I'm not going to remember it later, but I also need to be present. And I invited my daughter-in-law and she took notes. And, I asked another meeting if we could have a specific teacher there, and the school, worked with us. And if they're able to, cover that classroom or whatever, there's sometimes things like that we can do, or even getting an advocate. I mean, that made a big difference in some of our toughest days. That advocate was so helpful because, especially in a small community where I felt afraid of stepping on toes, she could ask questions that felt hard for me to ask. Even as simple as we had requested that there be some sensory tools available to him to help him through his day because he was just so struggling that by the time he got home, he was a mess. Well, he was working really hard to hold it together good at school, but our evenings were just horrible and he was not wanting to go to school. So the school said that they had these sensory tools available. I'm trusting. I say, good. Okay, thank you. The advocate says, do you mind if we see where those are? And they said, well, they're in his classroom. And she's like, well, do you care if we walk in and just look at, where you have those available to him? And we walked in and his desk was on one side of the room and they walked to cupboards. And this was like he was in second grade, so he's pretty short at this point. And up above the sink in a cupboard were his sensory tools, and it was the first time that I really thought, wow, I would have really missed that. It's just a simple little thing, but I would have been too scared to say originally, do you care if we look? And it's okay to be bold. I mean, for some personalities that are not bold, that's going to feel really uncomfortable, but I want to give you permission that sometimes we need to ask the tough questions in order to advocate well. How would you speak to maybe that same kind of fear in parents?
Yeah, well, I always have, when I'm in meetings, I use the TED framework, not, Jamie, did you take data? Well, she's going to say yes. Jamie, she's not going to go, nope. right? So ask, I love attorneys. One of the websites that I follow is NIDA, National Institute for Trial Advocacy. When attorneys are litigating, it's called advocacy. And attorneys ask what? Really good, planned out, and prepared questions. They didn't get in that courtroom and just wing it, right? And those questions are leading you to an answer and a story. So craft your questions in a way that they're purposeful, right? But having somebody, and you don't have to ask to bring somebody, you can bring the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders if you want. You don't owe anybody an explanation. They're not doing you a favor. You can bring whoever you want.
But they could be entertaining.
Yeah.
Are there certain questions parents should be asking in these IEP meetings?
Yeah, well, so kind of go back to your other point just really quickly. I record all of my meetings. You know why? Because if you're completely prepared and you went to a seminar and you're rested and happy and caffeinated, people retain 7% of what they hear. 7. We're writing a legal document, and I'm going to go off my notes, which I can't even read my own writing. So even if it's an hour meeting, and the reason I record is so that I remember what was said and who said it. So let's say I get your paperwork back and Jami put down that she can have, one speech session, a grading period. No, it was for a week. Well, if I don't have that recording, it's going to be hard to back that up. So I record. We have so many platforms to do that now, so that I can focus on the meeting. Always bring somebody with you who's not a full-time lunatic. Partial lunatic is fine. Bring somebody that's going to be helpful, not stir the pot. We don't need any of that. Bring somebody with you that will say, you know what, Jami, we're going to take a break. The break is so important. It's very Southern Baptist, right? I do lipstick, spray my hair again, and have a menopausal snack before I stick my tongue out at somebody, right? So that's the great thing about taking a break. That's why I do all of my IEP meetings by Zoom. Why? That way I can turn off my screen. I can call my client. If I'm at a school, me and Jami have to stand in the hall like we're in trouble, and a bunch of 8-year-olds are walking past us like, right? So it's a business meeting. I can screen share. And if I need a break, I need a break. And so I think that's why it's such a good modality, which is what all the hearing officers need now. The questions you need to ask are explaining questions. So I use the TED framework. Tell me what that looks like, Jami, when you're working with him. Explain what you do to make him love math. Can you describe what it looks like when you're working on his behavior goal? And they'll do that, right? And those conversations and that dialogue happens in the meeting, right? If you're going to be good at IEP meetings, you're going to be good at asking questions and asking follow-up questions. Because if we don't have the data, we can't make decisions.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, those kind of questions can unleash a whole different conversation. I'm thinking back to a specific meeting that I sat in when I was trying to convey to the team the level of anxiety and the stressors that our child faced from the time he got up to the time he walked into school, and the importance of scheduling in these sensory breaks because of all of the stressors he had before school even started. And the teacher, who I really liked and admired, but she just didn't quite understand things at the same level that I was trying to present, said, "Oh, he's just fine. He's just fine when he gets to school." And I said, "Can you explain to me what just fine looks like?" And she said, "Well, I mean, he sits there quietly and he just kind of rubs back and forth on the chalkboard tray like this. And that's how he starts his day every day." And I said, "Oh, well, that's helpful to know, because for him, seeking that kind of sensory input was something he was trying to do to calm himself. So I'm glad that you could fill me in on what that looked like at the start of the day, because his behavior is showing us that he's trying to calm himself. So thanks for helping me understand that. Could we try doing X instead? Or can we try building this in light of the fact that you could see his behavior communicating anxiety?" I think we run into whole different conversations when we do ask better questions.
Yeah. One of the books that I train on is Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. And he was a number one hostage negotiator, which is what IEP meetings are. And if you can get a stranger to agree with you and then come shake your hand afterwards, you're really a good negotiator. And so everybody should get his book, Never Split the Difference. And he talks about 9 black swan skills. I even have a black swan right there. And so the black swan is a piece of information that you don't have. But once you have that information, it will open up understanding. And it's not that people aren't wanting to tell you, they're just busy. And we have to go deeper. And so, working with him and learning negotiation skills were everything about how do I stay in a conversation? How do I stay in a conversation that just blew up, right? I have to take a break and then come back to the meeting. Or I was in a meeting and then I've got to log off and in 15 minutes, I've got to log back on and go, good morning, right? How do I recover from that? Because when you're in those meetings and you're high level stress, your amygdala is firing. Whether it's good or bad, you are not making good decisions. Your emotions have no intellect. They don't, good or bad, right? And so you need to stay in place where you can be curious and engage and keep it about the student. So sometimes I'll say, because I'm very laid back when I'm asleep, and people have certain opinions about me, and it'll get a little heightened, and I'll say, Jami, we're not having an argument. We're having a conversation. And everybody in a conversation, of course, see things from a different purview. So should we take a break for a few minutes, get a drink of water and come back? Or do you think we can proceed now? You got to talk about what's happening in the room. They're called accusations audits, right? I'll go, thank you for logging on. I'm sure you guys were very excited about being with the mouthy, special education boss. Thank you so much. And you just sort of address the thing in the room, right? Yeah. Thank you for coming. I know this is Ethan's 4th IEP meeting this semester. I really appreciate you taking time. Like just acknowledging that, but we just all sit there like, oh, right? And the other thing is you have to remember that schools, people that went to school to be a teacher did not go to school to sit in a meeting with me, right? They don't have the skill set to sit in a meeting with other adults. You have to realize the hardest people to teach are adults. Adult learners are very hard to teach. You know how I know that? I am one, right? And so you have a group of adults that don't sit together, work together, except for these meetings with that advocate and those parents. Yeah. And that's fine. I'm not in the I love you business. I'm in the effective business. I remember I told God when this was all happening, I really was planning on being popular. And he's like, no, I'd rather be effective. And I said, no, really, I was going for popular. And so I always had out of my greatest pain, God birthed my biggest call, and I would never change it. But when you're doing what you're called to do, it can be isolating, but it doesn't change the responsibility that you have to serve families and serve kiddos, however you sit at the table, because they have the same amount of value as any other kid in the building.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Now, I may or may not have been a parent that shed a few tears at an IEP meeting, and I'm guessing I'm not alone. So what do you suggest a parent should do if they bring concerns to the school and they feel dismissed or minimized, or maybe just told, well, let's just wait and see? And how can we as parents respond in a way that is firm, clear, and still collaborative? I know you mentioned the break, but I'm guessing you have a couple other things.
Yes. So when a school district is choosing to not do something, provide something, address something, I say it very clean and very legal, not personal, it's business. Should you choose to deny Jami XYZ, please put that denial in a prior written notice. That's it. I'm a believer, not a beggar. So should you choose to deny Jami testing, services, supports, breaks, a sensory box that he could reach if he wasn't 6 foot tall, but should you choose to deny her that, please put your denial in a prior written notice. And a prior written notice is a legal obligation that has 7 federal standards of the school explaining what occurred in the meeting, what's being delivered, and what's being denied. So, Ms. Cunningham, we didn't say that. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were saying that. So I just bring it back to business. Should you choose to deny, but I mean, it doesn't bother me. Good news, bad news, it's all news, right? Should you choose to deny after the data we've presented, please provide that denial in a prior written notice by close of business today. Okay. Sounds like my 13-year-old son doing his own laundry. All right. I am talking about a child being a successful adult. That's a pretty big responsibility. One of the things you have to remember, and I have families that I've served in Wyoming. It's very tiny situations. Your first grade teacher might also be your 10th grade teacher. I get it. I like to be adored. I'm sanguine. I would love to be a Cocker Spaniel, but I also am a Doberman. I will rip your leg off, right? This is a child. And so I think a lot of times for kids with disabilities, we don't see an ROI, right? I can tell you my 2 kids that were National Honor Society kids, and they graduated college and they have all these, but nobody ever sees kiddos that had special ed services and that great outcome, right? And so I think that often in schools, and I was that person before I had a child with a disability, I was as biased as they come. We don't think that kids with disabilities have the same value. We don't. We could, but we don't. You know why? Because our kids are never going to be a school board meeting photo op. They're never going to go to state. They're never going to get the highest score in the STEM thing, right? But they're just as valuable. And so these supports and systems were put in place 50 years ago because without them, kids were in institutions, right? Kids didn't go to school. And so do not step down on getting your child tested, whether it takes a year, a week, whatever. You keep asking. Testing does one of 2 things. It identifies or it eliminates, and we want both, right? Because we're just guessing. And when you're guessing with a child with disabilities, you could be handicapping them even more.
Yeah. So what do you think we should be documenting before, during, and after these IEP meetings? And why is that documentation so important?
So there's a document that comes out every grading period called your IEP progress report. So they're commensurate with grades. And so when you get that IEP progress report, let's look at it. If we said over 4 grading periods, we think he'd be at 80% on this goal, and he's at 4% after the first grading period, that's a problem. Or maybe he's at 55 after the first grading period. So we would need to go back as a committee and make adjustments, right? Because what did we say? This is our best informed guess, because this is a human, right? Maybe we need to change the modality, the methodology, the setting, the depth and breadth. Maybe he can't do 80 math facts, but maybe he could crush 15, right? But it's our job as parents to look at that progress report. And I'm going to tell you, do not put that in the binder. Get it out, get a highlighter. Did the student progress the way that we thought he would as a team? Additionally, when anything new arises, we bring that to the school, right? He could have an IEP for written expression and reading fluency, but he's in 4th grade and he is having big emotions and he's feeling unsuccessful. Well, just because I didn't identify it in 1st grade doesn't mean he couldn't have it now. I can't imagine going to the doctor now and having a medical condition, him going, well, you never had it before.
Have this 4 years ago.
Yeah. Where was that when you were in your 20s? I'm like, well, I had a thyroid in my 20s, sir. That's what happened. So you're not bothering anybody. I want you to be like your kids when they come in. It's summer. Our kids get up at noon, right? They don't go into the kitchen and go, dear Lord, I hope my mom bought food. Amen. And then they slowly open the pantry. Whatever your child needs at home, you provide that. And so these are things that your child needs. And it's the most important thing that you can do for them in education.
So true. Before we continue, I want to pause for just a minute because this conversation is such a good reminder that parents are carrying so much more than many people see. And when you're parenting a child with ADHD, DMDD, emotional dysregulation, maybe autism, sensory needs, challenging behaviors, you're not only parenting through the hard moments at home, you're also learning those school systems, trying to understand services, advocating for accommodations, communicating with teachers, doctors, tracking behaviors, and wondering if you're asking the right questions. And that's a lot to carry alone. And one of the reasons I would like to share this with you. You know you need to learn effective ways to handle your child's big emotions and challenging behaviors. But it feels like it's going to take so much time, money, and energy that you just don't have. Thankfully, that's not the case. The Calm Connection Parent Coaching Program will show you how to understand your child's wiring, calm the intense emotions, and manage those challenging behaviors with simple tools that actually work. Think of it as your shortcut. No more endless hours of research, expensive appointments, or sleepless nights worrying if things will ever get better. This is just what you've been waiting for, and quite possibly the answer to your prayers. Let's arm you with the best tools to help you parent your child to be all they were created to be. Join me at calmconnectionparent.com and let's get you back to the peaceful, loving, joy-filled family life you imagined. It's easier than you think, and you don't have to do it alone. That's true. And for those of you who are looking for maybe a little getaway, be sure to visit calmconnectionparent.com/retreat 2026, because if you haven't heard already, we are having a 3-day retreat for moms who just need to get away from sitting at home feeling like you're holding everything together and you might need a little bit of self-care. So check that out. Now let's continue with Karen, because I want to talk about how parents can keep the focus on the child's needs when meetings do start to feel kind of stressful or confusing. So, Karen, how can parents keep the conversation focused on those actual needs if the meeting is feeling rushed, or if it's feeling like things are getting confused, or maybe it's centered more on what the school can and cannot offer? What do we do in that moment?
And so in the moment is the reason it feels rushed is because that's what's happening, right? So listen to that. And I've been in meetings where it's 8 a.m. I've been on for 5 minutes and I'll say, you know what, Jami, you and I are not communicating successfully together today. And it doesn't seem like we're going to get there. So let's get out our books and look at a time to reconvene. Take that, the Bible says, keep your peace, right? It's going to be hard enough anyway. If we are heightened, we can't have a successful meeting. And I don't know why the principal's upset. I don't know. We think we know, we don't. But either we're having a successful meeting where we can communicate our different positions, which is why we're there, because we have different positions, or we're not. And so there's no imaginary timeline. IEPs don't expire. Cheese expires. So a lot of times you're getting misinformation, and it might be from somebody at the school who was taught misinformation, right? I don't find that it's malice, but you have to realize the school has done thousands of these meetings, thousands. So whenever you bring up a concern, they've had multiple times to address it before. And so it feels like it's happening fast. And I would just say, this is the speed of this meeting is not successful for me. I'm going to need to be able to ask informative questions and get data to support this, because we can only make an IEP based on data. And when I'm asking questions, I'm getting dismissed. Which makes me feel unsuccessful in a meeting. 3 things happen in a meeting. You can table it, you can agree, or you can disagree. And all of those things are fine, right? But don't be rushed in a meeting about your child's future, right? We take more time than, buying a car than we do an IEP meeting. And so if we finish today, great. If we don't, we didn't finish today. And so make sure that you're not being rushed because other people are having emotions. I remember this guy goes, we're going to have to finish because we're going to regionals in baseball. I said, first of all, congratulations, but we're going to finish this meeting. But they're on the bus. Mm-hmm. They'll be there when you get there because none of them have a driver's license. Oh. And so we're moms and dads. We know how to stick the landing. We had toddlers. We have teenagers. We know how to stick the landing. Do that at the school. And so there's nothing more that you can do that's better during these educational years than to support them at school like you always would. They can't do it for themselves. And sometimes the school needs to hear a different perspective. They do need to hear different things. And so it's fine, but there's nothing wrong with, we are not having a successful meeting. You and I are not communicating together successfully. That's probably me. It's not really. But let me get my book and we'll look at another fact, right? Because if we're all escalated, we're not going to have a good meeting anyway.
Right. And I have found that it's been helpful for me to just prepare them up front, that I'm not going to sign any papers. I'm going to take them home and review them and then get them back. Is it okay for parents to do that? Am I doing something I shouldn't be doing? How do you advise?
Yes, you are doing something illegal. And Jami, we're going to have you go to summer school for this. No, so it's not. So that's just been taught wrong, right? So here's what you need to do. When we come to the end of an IEP meeting and there's been an offer of FAPE, and the offer of FAPE is the schedule of services page, we have a legal obligation to sign and agree, disagree, or table if you need to. I'm assuming that what we agreed upon and talked about and adjusted will be done clerically. But you want to sign the document then, right? And there's some schools that let you take it home and sign it. It doesn't change the legal requirements of it. So I would say, is there something, Jami, that we needed to explain more so you don't need to take it home? Because it starts anyway, whether you take it home or not, whether you sign it or not. And so I always want my parents' position to be captured. And so maybe Jami signs, understanding that I'm going to take my 5 days to review it. And if I find a part that I disagree with, I will call for a reconvene, but sign the document. Yeah. So at some point, your documents, I have one of my trainings that says I prepare for war, assume consensus. I prepare for one day. Your documents might be in a due process hearing. They might be in a civil rights case. They might be in a mediation. Yeah. So when parents don't sign and somebody else, a fact finder, a hearing officer, a mediator, it looks like Jami didn't even care to sign. Right. So I always want my paperwork to speak for me when I'm not there. Okay. I could sign and say, I'm signing an agreement. However, I felt rushed and I didn't get my questions answered. And it's quite concerning. And that feels yucky, even saying it. Believe me, I would prefer that everybody just clapped and applauded when I walked into a room. That doesn't always happen. But the hard thing is why it's a hard thing, right? So write down, I was rushed. I didn't get my questions answered. I'm concerned this is not a good IEP. Write it down. And then we have to legally address it, but just going, right, and acting like you're a 3-year-old, that's not helpful. So certainly I would say, can we get our final copy by the close of business tomorrow? And then I'll take my 5 business days. So at the end of your meeting, they should say, do you want to keep or waive your 5 days? And those 5 days are for the parent to review the document. And at the end of those 5 days, what we have down will go into place unless we reconvene a meeting. So that makes sense. Capture your position before you leave. The further away you get from yucky, the less yucky it felt. Okay. And so when you're in the moment, write down what is going on, because you're not going to remember later, 2 days later.
It's usually just overwhelm. I think I'm afraid I'm going to sign something I wish I hadn't, or that I'll think of something that I should have thought of sooner. But if you're talking about the 5 days, it's not too late. You can sign it and still get in touch. So it's not like you're signing away your right to discuss it anymore.
Yeah, well, you can have an IEP every day if you wanted. There's no...
Oh, they're not that fun.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, you only get one refill at Pizza Hut. Yeah. If you realize something, and we can call a parent conference. Sometimes we can do what we call a paper amendment. Hey, I forgot it. We need that on extra time up to 1 day for English 2 class. Yeah. And so there's different things. It's not, you don't have to remember everything right then. We're a bunch of people writing this document, this blueprint for this child to be successful. And I'll have IEP meetings and I'll have 6 in 1 year for a family. And I'll have one that I just have one every year. And so they're children, we make adjustments.
Yeah. Well, I just love all of the good encouragement and reminders that you've given us today. I feel like we could talk forever, and I think I've kept you longer than I intended to keep you because we've just had so much to cover. But Karen, thank you so much for helping parents understand how to advocate with more confidence and with more clarity. I think so many families walk into these meetings feeling maybe a little bit unsure or intimidated, but this conversation reminds us that parents are a really important part of this team. And friends, if you're listening and feeling overwhelmed, remember this: you do not have to know everything to take your next best step. You can ask questions, you can request clarity, you can document what you're seeing, you can keep bringing the conversation back to your child's needs. You're not just attending the meeting, you're an important part, an important voice of the team. So keep on keeping on. Karen, I want you to make sure that you remind us about that nice book behind you and where people can get in touch with you.
Yeah. So you can reach us at specialeducationacademy.com. We have 2 academies every Monday night. One is Special Education Academy, where we train everyone that sits at the IEP table. We're live every Monday night. We have over 400 hours of archived past trainings. So that's professional development every 7 days. We just launched Epic Educator Academy, which is solely for school-based members, because you need this training every 7 days. But go and get the Epic IEP. You can get it at theepic.com or where books are sold. Get a copy for your principal. Get a copy for your favorite teacher, because it takes something complicated and it makes it seamless and simple, but effective to serve a child.
Oh, I love that. And I think it would be a great help. And thank you so much for just bringing a little bit of lightness and laughter to these discussions over something that for many of us really do drive us to tears.
Yes.
Parents, keep remembering that what you're doing is very important. You fill a very important role as an advocate for your child, and you don't have to feel guilt and shame for doing that well. Keep on keeping on. Keep looking for your calm in the chaos, and it's okay, even if you're still trying to figure it all out. I hope today's episode gave you a breath of fresh air, maybe a bit of hope, too. If this encouraged you, would you please take a moment to follow and leave a quick review? It helps this much-needed message of calm and connection reach more families. And if you're looking for additional resources, be sure to visit calmconnectionparenting.org and check out the podcast tab. There you'll find a variety of free resources waiting just for you. Until next week's episode, take a deep breath, grab that fresh cup of coffee, and remember, you've got this. And on the days you don't, well, we're in it together.